if you have a history of setting a goal and starting to achieve that goal, but maybe hitting some sort of plateau and then maybe working harder, getting yourself injured, or just hitting the plateau and eventually getting demotivated and giving up on that goal, then this video should be the one for you. So I've been doing calisthenics on and off for about 3 years now. I started out really skinny in the gym, just put a little bit of muscle mass on me, so then I achieved that and I wanted to do something a bit more fun, so I started calisthenics and learning different skills like the L-sit and the ring muscle up and just getting better at like dips and pull-ups, and I really enjoyed that. There came some problems when I, both in my lifting and in my calisthenics, I set goals and I ended up either getting close to achieving those goals or I did achieve those goals, but in the process of doing that I hurt myself, I got injured. I mean, to this day, I have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 like different reoccurring injuries that I'm trying to work through. And I kind of wanted to help people from not making the same mistakes that I did, that led to me becoming more demotivated and ultimately very inconsistent with calisthenics, to a point where you wouldn't think that I've trained for 3 years. You'd think that I've trained for maybe like 6 months or a year in calisthenics rather than, broadly fitness, right? So yeah, I've done this multiple times. The one big example is I really wanted to achieve the ring muscle up, and it is a skill I eventually achieved and I can still do to this day. It was when I was kind of transitioning from doing things like bench press and trying to get to like 100 kg bench press, to more interesting calisthenic skills or things that I found more interesting. And at that time, I will tell you what I was doing. I was doing 5x5 on bench press, roughly 3 times a week. Well, this was my session actually. I'll tell you what my session was. I would start with ring muscle up, banded attempts, and doing sets of that. I would then go and maybe do some accessories, or I'd do my bench press set, which was 5x5, right? And then I would do weighted ring dips as well as that, which was like between 15 and 20 kg for like, 3 to 5 reps. I trained my chest way too much, way too much. And I ended up learning the ring muscle up, but shortly after that, maybe in the same month, I noticed chronic pain in my chest. And I was so set on that goal that I kind of just increased my volume, increased my load, and didn't stop and didn't listen to my body, because I was so set on that goal, and I would have felt like shit if I didn't achieve that goal. I would have mentally been like mean to myself, I guess you could say, if I didn't achieve that goal. I was so set on doing it. I felt inadequate without it, is what I'm trying to say. So shortly after achieving the ring muscle up, I get this chronic chest pain, and I end up losing so much calisthenics progress because of this injury. I go to square one, I go to the physio. Basically, I had really hunched posture. My pec minor was extremely shortened and extremely weak, to the point where I just couldn't train chest at all, really, and I lost these skills. Fast forward to today, I've made this mistake a few more times, with trying to like do tuck planches and really overloading my shoulders and my chest, and my traps was a big one as well. Extreme tightness in my traps, just because I thought that I felt inadequate without goals. I rushed them. I gave myself deadlines that I didn't need to give myself, because I thought I wouldn't go through on it. I think it can be a vicious cycle. More on that later. And yeah, I wanted to share with you the 2 types of goals that there are, or the 2 types of goal setting, it's probably better to say. And the first type is the one I was talking about just then, right? So success is when I've just achieved the skill, right? So as you can see, we set the goal, we work hard to achieve that goal, we make some desired progress, or we plateau. So if we plateau, we might work harder, we might get injured. If we plateau, we might give up, which can lead to what I said earlier, like poor self-esteem and lack of motivation. And then if you get injured, we might give up. or if we get injured, we have to rehab, similar to what I said, which kind of puts us back to square one, right? As you can see, this arrow that goes all the way around. Or we make the progress, we achieve the goal, right? It does work, it can work. I'm not a straight hater on the method of setting a skill and just working really hard until you get it, because it does work, especially in the early stages of something, when you're still achieving newbie gains and your body's adapting a lot faster, right? So the pros is, yeah, that you do achieve the skill sometimes, and the cons can be endless, but the main ones here is the higher risk of injury, which I talked about, the risk of losing that motivation and that confidence, and like ruining your self-esteem in a bit some sort of way, feeling inadequate until you have achieved it, sorry, right? But it can work, and it did work for me for certain skills like the L-sit, like the ring muscle up, like the bar muscle up at one point. But that was another thing that I ended up losing because I just overworked my body, right? I was not in the right mental headspace, and that just and I didn't have enough patience, and that just had a bad effect on my training. And I started to enjoy it less, which is why at times I gave up, right? There was times where I didn't train for like 1 to 2 months at a time. Most recently, last year, in maybe March and April, maybe February, March, I didn't train for like 2 months at all. And not just me losing calisthenics progress, but also just being in a terrible mental space because I had lost this passion which I was so driven for, right, at one point. So now I'll lead you to type 2 goal setting, which is what I'm trying to be more consistent at now and what I wanted to share with you guys. So I'll do it this way, actually, it works better. So success is the continued effort to refine the process which will lead to me achieving the skill, right? I'm gonna read that out again because I think I wrote this and I was like, holy shit, that is so good. Success is the continued effort to refine the process which will lead to achieving the skill, right? And I'll show you this diagram here. So set goals, same position, right? And we work hard. Once we've set that goal, we do what we think is best. Maybe we train hard, maybe we try different techniques and different, methods of achieving that goal. Oftentimes we don't achieve the skill within the first attempt at it, right? You already know that. We plateau, just like on this side, right? We're gonna plateau at some point. And when we plateau, the goal then isn't to train harder, right? The goal then is to gain knowledge, to get smarter, to evaluate what we've done wrong, what we can do better, and then we refine the process. We refine the process and we prevent ourselves from overtraining. We prevent ourselves from injuring ourselves, giving up, from losing that confidence. And ultimately, we come back and we work hard again. Now we've got that new knowledge and we've refined the process. We go again. This is like, by the way, you could look at this from a 2 to 3 month perspective, like this loop. But you could also look at it from a session to session perspective. Maybe not optimal, but we do things within a session and we refine those things. For example, you're learning the handstand. If you, session by session, you can improve the form of your handstand. You could realize, oh, I've got posterior pelvic tilt or I've got anterior pelvic tilt. I'm not tensing my glutes and my quads, and then, changing that, right? So yeah, we go around this loop a few times within a year or 2 years, and we eventually achieve the skill. But when we've achieved that skill, we're not going to lose it, right? We have done so much, we've gained so much knowledge, we've been so smart in the way that we have approached it that we just don't lose, right? Pros, I mean, this has all been rubbed out, but I'll go through them anyway. Lower risk of injury, as I just said. You also learn to love the process. And that's honestly the biggest key to consistency that there is, right? If you are not giving up, you're not losing confidence, you're not getting injured, you're not experiencing an incredible amount of pain during your training, you're going to start to love the process. And that is the reason why I love calisthenics, is because you're staying in incredibly good shape without it feeling incredibly difficult on the body. When you do it right, that is, right? It's fun, and it keeps you in great shape. Like, what more could you ask for? Not losing that motivation, not losing that confidence, and not feeling inadequate for not yet achieving it, right? If you come from this place, you go into each session and you talk to your friends and you train together, and you feel fucking great because you can see that day by day progress. You don't feel like shit. You don't feel like shit because you're comparing yourself to others and being like, oh, this guy achieved it. You're focusing on your own process, your own progress, right? The only con of this method, I guess you could say, is it requires more patience and it requires more discipline to actually enact that knowledge, right? And then put that knowledge into reality. Train in a smarter way. That takes a lot of discipline, it takes a lot of patience. Anyone that's trained like this knows that it's not easy. And I catch myself very often when I'm trying to get better at my handstand. I know there's certain drills I can do, right? I know I can do toe taps or heel taps or even like a pike hold to improve my compression, right? But I find myself urging just to do attempt after attempt after attempt, you know. So it's a continuous battle, right? And as I said, look, success is the continued effort to refine the process and enact that process until you achieve the goal, right? It's not about getting that PR, even though that feels fucking great, and let it feel fucking awesome because you deserve it when you get it, right? It is about feeling good about doing the right thing, feeling good about doing the drills that achieve you the thing with a good amount of specificity and a sensible amount of progressive overload. So, yeah, that is the goal setting method that I think could accelerate your calisthenics progress, as well as I talked about earlier, the other goal setting method, which can just make you so injured, so worn out, so burnt out, so demotivated. So, sorry if I appeared like a crazy person. I feel like I've been speaking so fast, but hopefully you stayed engaged. And yeah, thank you for watching. Peace.